Today, we're mixing this little treasure. It is YinMin Blue, and my version is by QoR. This is an expensive pigment. And if you saw my recent live stream where I shared my new QoR colors and the gifts that they had sent, this was not a gift that they sent. I spent my own money on this one. A whole bunch of my own money on this one. This is the QoR YinMin Blue. Now, I'm going to have everything linked in the description below, and I will link to a few different YinMin Blues so that you can check out, whichever one is most economical in your area. However, this, I believe, is very limited. It's not in their regular line. It doesn't even have like the color, and the labels aren't even like the normal. Like, see, here's a regular QoR label. And yeah, not only is it not the same type of label, it's a much smaller tube. So just know, this color is typically sold in a 5 ml tube and a 5 ml tube only, as far as I know. If you know somebody who sells it in larger tubes, please drop a comment below. But I believe that these are just sold in 5 mls. Now, YinMin Blue is PB86. PB86 has a light fast of excellent. It is opaque and granulating. This is super expensive, like over $30 for a little 5 ml tube. But today, I'm going to show you how you can mix up a YinMin Blue hue that is going to match the original so closely. Well, you might question, do you need to buy this one tube? And this time, the artist math on this one is going to add up. Because even if you buy 2 tubes, it's still much less than one little 5 ml tube here. So I think you're going to appreciate this one. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, I have a few palettes on the desk. This is the little mini QoR palette that I just recently put together for my last plein air painting trip, but it has my ultramarine blue, and it has one of the 2 colors that I think are going to work with this to create YinMin Blue. And today, I'm recording this from the very onset. Normally, I will practice before I start recording, but today I'm just diving right in because I did a little playing with this during the last live stream where I shared this color for the first time. And I think I might have a handle on this one rather quickly. So I'm just going to grab my medium palette. This is the one I used in that video. And if you remember, this is my little tiny speck of YinMin Blue that I had put out. Now, I have since poured a half pan of this, and this will be going into my large QoR palette. I have to put that together. So, yeah, if that's something you're interested in seeing come together, drop me a comment below and let me know. And perhaps I'll just record that process of me building my full collection in a palette. Okay, let's start with, what does YinMin Blue look like? I'm just going to use what's here first because I'd like to use it up out of this palette so that I can use this for other things. So I'm just going to set this little pan that I had poured aside along with the actual tube. That's what it looks like, all dried down in the pan. Let's get ourselves a little wet area. This is a color that you will see. It's going to granulate. Why I'm making a nice wet wash here. And let's go ahead grab some of this. This is a very warm blue. Look at it just kind of take off. Wow. It is QoR, so that's not completely surprising me, but look at that. It's just beautiful. This is definitely more red leaning. It is a warm blue. That is wonderful. And we are mixing this color today because when I was talking about this color and how much it costs, and I joked that we needed to learn to mix it because it was so expensive, we had this comment from Wildflower saying we need a video showing how to mix it ourselves. And yes, well, Wildflower, here you go. If there's a mix that you would like to learn, drop it in the comments. I do read them, and you never know. Yours could be featured as a future Monday mix. So let's take a look at this. It is a very warm blue. we need to see if we can mix that. I have my big pad here, and I'm just going to let this set aside and dry. But look at, you can already see it starting to granulate. It's a beautiful color. I think we can do this one pretty easily. And you might already have the pigments that you need. And if you don't, I don't think they're going to be very expensive to add them to a collection if you wanted to, versus the cost of one little tube of that. So to start with, I knew I needed a warm blue, so I was going to go for ultramarine. Okay, and maybe it would help. Let me put it on this page as well. We want to see our YinMin right there. Look at that beautiful blue. Okay, so ultramarine blue, PB29. Look at that. Before, this was my warmest blue, but look at the difference between the two. This has a much more purpley reddish feel to it. We definitely, and you can really see the granulation happening on here. Now, we definitely need to be able to warm this up, but I'm not necessarily thinking red. It's a lovely granulating color. I want to stick with things that granulate, and I'm going to start with some ultramarine blue. And I do have my YinMin right here, so I'm going to kind of compare like that. Maybe I'll turn it so I can see them more side by side as I start to mix them together. And we'll bring it over here so that you guys can see it better. It is really rainy out today, so I've got weird shadows happening because my normal light is not, I'm not getting the normal light balanced in from the window. Let's see if we can fix that. Hopefully that won't wash it out too much, but we shall see. Okay, so we are going to add to this. I have two options here. Both of them are PV15. Okay, so I'm going to start with the PV15 Ultramarine Pink Dark. That is by QoR. So I'm sticking with QoR Pigments because I'm mixing a QoR color and I'm just going to stick with QoR. So here is the Ultramarine Pink Dark, PV15. This is one of QoR's newer, new released colors. I believe that's correct. Yes, Ultramarine Pink Dark was one of the new colors that QoR has just released. There we go. If I mix these two together, I definitely need to stay leaning blue. So I probably have a little too much in there. I'll grab a little bit more of the ultramarine. That is pretty darn close. It is close. I almost grabbed the actual YinMin Blue. It's close, but not quite. It's like a little too pinkish. So let's try, again, our ultramarine blue. And this time, we're going to go with the QoR Ultramarine Violet. And that looks, oh, if I can get that on there. That looks like that. That is a little closer to what I'm seeing in the undertone here. So we're going to mix a little bit of this together until I get something that looks kind of like that. That sure does look awfully close. I think it needs just a touch. Now this is the process I normally go through before I make a video. And again, I'm going to put the YinMin Blue here. And you guys have seen that. I've shown you my larger pieces of paper when I have all of the swatches on them. Look at that. Now, there's always a drying shift. So we need to let both of these dry and come back and take another look. But I think we have something that is almost perfect. I'm going to let these dry. Can you see what's happening on the palette? I love how it's separating, and look at those. They're gorgeous. Let me move these off. And share these up close for you. This might still have a little bit extra of the purple in it. We look at the YinMin. Just a little bit extra. You just need a touch of the ultramarine violet, just a touch, to shift the ultramarine blue. So here in this one, we got a really great granulating swatch when I put that one down. That is the YinMin. This is it with the ultramarine violet. So I'm just going to put UMV because these are both, they are both PV15s, right? So we have PV15, PB29, and this was ultramarine pink dark, and this one is ultramarine violet. So I'm just going to put UV. It's ultramarine violet. This is a gorgeous color. It's so pretty. Of course, this is just PB29, right? But this mixture, two different versions. I absolutely think we need the violet versus the pink dark. The pink dark is a little too bright, and pink gets it more even warmer than this is. It's much more red leaning here, almost into, it almost pulls it all into a violet versus still being a blue. So the part that you normally see would be right here when we would come in and I would start the video. So let's go ahead and swatch our two pigments that we're going to use and see if we can create our mix one more time to show you how, and then compare them. Okay, so today we have the beautiful ultramarine blue. Give that plenty to move around and do its thing. Look at that. I just love watching QoR move. Where are my QoR fans out there? If you love QoR watercolors, you know, hit that like button. If you are loving the fact that you could probably create this mix now yourself and create something that looks just like YinMin Blue without the expense of YinMin Blue. If you guys seen the video, and I will try to link that up here for you if you missed it. There is chapter markings, so you know you don't have to watch the entire stream. You can jump right to the part where I talk about my most expensive pigment or paint, and you'll hear all about it there. Look at this beautiful PV15, and I did write that it is the ultramarine violet because there are more than one PV15 single pigment colors in the QoR range. It's just beautiful. Okay, now let's start fresh, shall we? I'm going to clean this palette off for a moment, just like that. Don't you just love the magic of YouTube? Okay, and we start with our ultramarine blue. So here's our ultramarine blue. Gorgeous, beautiful blue. And to that, we are going to be adding our ultramarine violet. Okay, that's way more than we're going to need. In fact, I'm going to rinse my brush so that it's clean. And you can see just how much of this we end up putting into this, because there's not a lot of that there either. Let's come front and center. Ready? And we will even zoom right on in. Okay. So when we look at our ultramarine blue, we just need to get it just slightly warmer. Could this work with a red pigment? It's possible. It is definitely possible. It's not one that I have tried just because I this is the colors the way I saw the color. So right now I'm looking at my swatch and I'm looking at how when I mix this, like how much of the purple I'm seeing come through. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just bring this up in, mix these around. And I think we're just going to give that right there a try. So I still have ultramarine blue off on the side there. I'm not going to let it mingle, but I just want you to see the difference. Here's ultramarine blue, and this has just a slight shift in color. Not a lot, just a little bit. And that is what we're going to swatch. Let's test it out. And of course I didn't make my spot wet like I did this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm working with my Princeton Velvet Touch brushes today. I love these brushes. I'm really enjoying working with them. Just trying to watch where I get my water. I want to get close to it so you can compare very easily, but not really connect them. Okay. Hook that up to dry. All right. Ready? Moment of truth. I always get nervous when I do this part because it's like, oh, did I mix it up right? Is it going to come out? Am I going to show you? Is it going to be correct? Dropping more over here because I want this, like I did last time, I dropped more on this. I need, so that you can see it, I need that heavier, granulation to be happening down here like this one does. Because otherwise they just kind of don't look the same. This hue might be right, but it just doesn't look right because maybe the swatch is darker on this end than the other. But right there at first glance, I think we've nailed that. Like I usually do, I'm going to go ahead and let this one dry so we can get a close-up look and compare them. But right away, it is looking really close, really close. Let's see if we can take this and we'll mix it one more time and get a bigger swatch of it. Just so that you can see. We'll try to do a really nice wet and wet wash. So again, that's our ultramarine blue. And we're just going to want enough ultramarine violet. See, it just starts to shift that hue away from that ultramarine color just when it just starts to change. We don't need a lot. We're not trying to make this purple. We're just trying to warm it up ever so slightly so that it's going to look like the YinMin. I'm going to go with that again. Mix ourselves up or swatch a big old spot, getting plenty of water because I want you to see the granulation, and we're going to compare those both side by side again. And I'm just going to drop in. This is going to be very wet. I would just pour the pigment right out of the palette if it would pour for me. I'm going to drop more of it on this side, and I'll do the opposite. I'll drop more on the left side when I tap out for the YinMin over here. I'm just going to put this aside, bring this one over. This little drop has lasted quite a while. Quite a while. It reactivates so beautifully. Look at that. Those are so close. I'm calling this one a win. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. But I'm calling this one a win. I think you'll be very successful trying to mix this one yourself if you just remember that with your ultramarine blue, you're only adding enough of the ultramarine violet to just start to shift the hue. You don't want to go too much towards violet. Just enough to change. It's going to make ultramarine blue look warm in comparison, or cool comparison to when you put that in the mix. Just warms it up just a tiny bit. Look what we have here. Look at those. By using 2 of these, because these are both granulating, it's really giving us that nice granulation like we get in the YinMin. We're going to see it more in this swatch, so I'm going to let that one dry before we say goodbye for today. But I also need to label it because these are so close. Future me is not going to remember. So this is our mix, and this is the original, right? Because we have that down here. And then this is our mix. This is our original. All right. With the magic of YouTube, we will let that dry right now. While that's drying, I was just sitting here watching paint dry and thought to myself, you know, I have ultramarine violet and I have French ultramarine in Daniel Smith. French ultramarine, I was just looking at how much this was a little bit more heavily granulating and this is a little bit more heavily granulating. And I'm questioning, is that version going to look even closer? So, you know, I had to try it. So I figured I might as well do it with you watching. Why not? What could go wrong? So here's our ultramarine blue. Excuse me. This is our Daniel Smith French ultramarine blue. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. Take my ultramarine violet, because I can't see how much I have on my brush yet. We're going to just start to mix in. See, that was already too much on my brush, because I think that's leaning way too. See how it went purple? That's what we don't want. We don't want it looking purple. We still want it to be French ultramarine, just slightly leaning this way. I think that's going to be close enough right there. All right. I'm going to put it on this side of the original. Grab some water because I didn't do well, that's very wet now. I grabbed a lot of water. Getting some of that out of my brush. And I'm going to dry it off. And then I will drop in. It's going to take a while for that one to dry. But will it be more heavily granulating like this one? That's the question. It's possible. I think I had too much water in that mix. I'm just going to mix up a little bit more with what I have here on my palette, just so I can add a touch more into this water. I might have had too much ultramarine, or not enough of the ultramarine violet, but we'll see. It's fine. I was experimenting. And it could be darker too, because I added more. I added a lot more pigment. Either way, we'll see. I definitely think, looking at what I saw here on my palette, that you can absolutely mix it with Daniel Smith's version as well. If we look at how the pigments themselves compare QoR to Daniel Smith, I will show you. So I'll put Daniel Smith on the right and QoR on the left. Okay, so we have Daniel Smith's PV 15. There we go. And then QoR. Ooh, look at that. Because this has been wet, I got quite a bit of pigment on there because it is, these reactivate, they're so highly pigmented. That's one thing about QoR. You will not need, your paint seems to last, my paint at least seems to last me a bit longer when I'm using QoR. It's like it just goes further because they're so highly pigmented, and the colors are just like a bit crisper as well, I think. If I want more granulation though, of course I'm going to look to like Daniel Smith or Schmincke. I think they granulate a little bit better. And now with these, we're going to be comparing not Daniel Smith's ultramarine, because I do have that. We're looking at French ultramarine, which is this one. That's what I used. To QoR's ultramarine. And if you have Daniel Smith's regular ultramarine, Again, that's really wet. This is gonna be this is gonna be strong. Yeah, not too bad. So when I look at them, the French ultramarine version by Daniel Smith is already looking slightly warmer than QoR, but only slightly. And these very similar, but yeah, this is a little bit pinker than QoR's version here. So we have QoR, Daniel Smith, QoR. But you see they're very, very close. I think you can absolutely, and look at how this is turning out. I'm going to let those finish drying and we will compare. But yeah, those are very close. Okay, they're mostly dry, but there we have it. Our YinMin Blue hue is what I'm going to call it. Because we're not using the original PB86. We're using 2 other pigments to make something that looks like that. So we have our YinMin Blue hue that we're mixing today. And I think we did it. That is so very, very close. Close enough that you think you're going to try it. Close enough that it's worth mixing versus purchasing your own YinMin Blue. I don't know. Only you guys can answer that, but you'll have to let me know in the comments. Are you excited to have this one? Now let's look. This is, I didn't mark this, but this was the Daniel Smith mix, and this is the QoR mix. And of course, that's the original YinMin Blue. This is a little bit more purpley, so I still had a little bit more, and I thought I went too much ultramarine. No, that was still a little bit too ultramarine violet, in my opinion. It's not 100% dry, but yeah, I think that was just a little bit more. I'm seeing more of the violet coming through in here. It needs more blue. But this, if I look at like just right here and I look like right in here, I'm seeing these the same. The way the colors settle, I have more pigment in this swatch than I do in my original. So that's kind of hard when I'm comparing these as well, because I wanted to show you how the granulation sits in here. I am actually seeing what looks like blue, and I'm seeing some hues that look more violet in there. I really do think, again, it's leaning slightly more on the ultramarine violet, just a little bit. You can see just that little bit of purplish, slightly stronger purplish look to it versus the original. But I think this is one that you can absolutely, I mean, if we look here, the swatch we did when we mixed it this time, I think we really got it. And you guys have to let me know in the comments. Are you going to give this one a try? I hope so. I hope that you found this one valuable, because this is not an inexpensive pigment. It's going to set you back. Again, I will put everything in the description for both QoR and Daniel Smith. And Golden, I will link to this too, where you can get this. You have to order it directly from Golden. You can't order it from Blick. You can't order it from the art stores. You have to order it from Golden. Now, you can get other tubes from places like Blick. Again, I will put everything in the description. There are a few other companies that offer it. I know Schmincke's one. So just for you to kind of shop around, price compare. But the link for this will not be an affiliate link. However, any other links in the description will be. There you go, YinMin Blue. I am not disappointed that I have this one. And again, if you want to hear the funny story behind my purchasing the YinMin Blue, check out the video that I linked earlier. It was, yeah, I can laugh at myself now. It was a funny story, but you can see as I turn that, you can really see some of those violet, values or tones, colors, hue. You can see the violet in it as I kind of manipulate that around, especially when you can see it next to that violet, the PV15. That's really what my eyes were picking up on, and that's why I went to a PV15. Now again, could you have used a red to mix this? Maybe. But this, I thought, just worked so well. And yeah, let me know. Drop me a comment. I can't wait to see you again next week. I am working on a big mix. This has been a mix that has been a couple weeks in the making. There's a lot of work involved in this one. So stay tuned next week where we will dive into yet another mix. I'm going to pop another video up here that you might like to watch next. And in the meantime, my friends, keep mixing, keep creating, and I'll see you in a video real soon. Bye.